either CNN International or BBC because they were the only English-speaking channels, quite frankly. And I remember walking by the TV and looking and seeing the World Trade Center North Tower burning. I'm like, what the hell is that? And going and turning up the volume and seeing this and wondering, like, wow. And hearing them say, yeah, a plane hit it, the World Trade Center, and we don't know about the visibility. And looking, it's a clear, crystal clear blue sky day. And I'm like, this isn't an accident. So my former wife was the unit ombudsman. So I called her. I said, what are you doing? She said, I'm vacuuming. I said, put the TV on to Fox News. Tell me what's going on. She said, what? And I said, just turn it on. And as we were talking, and I'll never forget this as long as I live, as we were talking, the South Tower blew up. And the first thing that went through my mind was, what happened in the North Tower to make the South Tower blow up? And I closed my eyes and replayed it in my mind. And when I replayed it in my mind, I saw the airplane coming from right to left around the back of the building. And I said to my ex, I said, that's another plane. This is deliberate. Stop making your phone calls to the people, because IBU 22, being out of New Haven, Connecticut, had a substantial number of people from the New York area, including firemen and policemen, and we know relatives, brothers, cousins, everybody. Right. Like every other big city, everybody's related to everybody. So she started making phone calls. And of course, we got the word about the Pentagon. We immediately went to, as you know, Force Protection Condition Delta. Commander Popesca, who was the mission commander, decided he wanted everybody back into the warehouse. And I said to him, no. He said, what do you mean no? And I said, you make us a target. We're all in one place. Leave us out here in the economy. We're spread out. We're not a concentrated target. I said, we'll come up with some regulations, rules and stuff, but no, the last thing you want to do is concentrate everybody in one spot. Not that I think we're the target, but then you become one. There was some heated discussion about those things, but he eventually relented. My apartment became the central point that night as all of that information was pouring into us. And as the day went on, it wasn't very long before I learned that there were 2 American Airlines planes involved. And being a management employee with American Airlines at the time, I was devastated.
I can imagine.
I called a friend of mine in Boston and I said, what's going on? Tell me. And he said to me, I can't give you any names. He said, but it was Flight 11 and you know most of the crew. So 9/11's always been pretty personal for me. And it's the darkest day of my calendar every year.
Sure.
It taught me what bloodlust is. Because, quite frankly, at that point, I wanted to kill somebody. The following morning, I was briefing the boat crews as they going out, getting ready to do their mission. And I can remember asking one of the gunner's mates, have you got your flares, the little pencil flares we use as a signal. And he said to me, yes, sir, I got my flares. Every 5th round on that 50 is a flare. Those who know 50 cals will understand what I'm saying.
That's right.
And I said, well, hopefully we don't have to use those. And then we, got the word to open up the Port of Fujairah, that you know as well as I do. And we went through all of those things. We came back from that deployment to a very changed United States. A much more cautious United States, a much more, it was certainly a wounded country. but also at that point, a much more unified country. Especially when you contrast it to today. Shortly after we came back in December that year, I took the family to Disney World. My kids were a little nervous about going on a plane, but I assured them we would be fine. We went to Disney and the place was basically deserted. There was just nobody there. But it is what it is, and the country survived it. We came back from it. The one thing, as much as I like President George W. Bush, the one mistake I think he made, and I will always think it was a mistake, is that he did not put the country on a war footing. So the only people that felt the impact of 9/11 were the military families, and those families directly related to the airline people who were affected. The rest of the country kind of went on, because if you recall, he went and said, go shopping, go do these things, or the terrorists win. Well, you know what? I think that was the wrong tack to take, and we'll always think it was the wrong one, because he took that whole incident, that whole thing, and concentrated it in that one small group, the military and the airline. And the rest of the country just went on. For the folks who live on the West Coast, 9/11 is just, that's terrible that happened. There's no impact for them, really. The impact was here in the Northeast, right, and in the military, where your family, my family, and every other military family was directly affected. And looking at that, from the military, of course, we follow our orders. We came home. I got released from active duty. Went back to work at American on the 1st of January of 2002. And I remember distinctly about 2 weeks later, sitting at home at dinner with the family. And my son looked at me and said, I figured it out. You're probably going to get recalled to active duty again in December. And I looked at him and said, what are you talking about? And he said to me, well, there's this many boat units, blah, blah, here and there and everything else. And he did his figuring, and he said, I figured December 1st. Well, he missed by 11 days. The order came in on December 11th.
Okay.
It was like, Jesus.
That's scary.
Yeah. And of course, at that point, I was now the CO. When we came back from the initial deployment, the whole, the selection board thing for reservists had been done. I forget what they call it now. And I had applied to be the CO of IBU 22, and I didn't get selected. Some guy on the West Coast got selected, and those selections were done before the events of September 11th. Well, apparently, after the events of September 11th, the guy who had been selected to be CO of IBU 22 declined the position.
There's a warrior for you.
Yeah, there's a tough guy, huh? And when we got back to Williamsburg, we were sitting in there, a group, and they're doing all their stuff, and you know how painful that can be. The chief staff officer came in and said to me, the Commodore wants to see you. And I was the XO of the unit. I'm thinking, and my first thought was, holy smoke, something wrong with my family. So I go in and I get ushered into the Commodore's office, and he starts talking to me about sorts and this and that, blah, blah, this and that. And I'm looking at him going, sir, isn't this a discussion for the CO? And he said to me, you're the CO. And I said, I'm not the CO. He said, effective the 1st of October, you're the CO. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, nope, you're the CO. The guy that had it declined it. Now it's you. And I'm like, you think maybe we should talk to the current CO about it? And he said, you are the current CO. Fix it. And I was absolutely speechless.
Wow.
And I walked out of there. When I walked back to the classroom, where everybody's in there filling travel claims out and all that crap. And I caught the CO's eye, and I just said, I need to talk to you. And I told him what happened. He said, I'm not surprised. And I said, this is BS. They can't do this. He said, oh, yeah, they can. I said, what happened? He said, I gave him crap. He said, this is my punishment. So I changed of command. There was a Coast Guard officer walking by in the parking lot. We grabbed him and said, come here, we need you to witness something. And that's when I relieved Eric Zane in the parking lot in Williamsburg in front of some unknown Coast Guard officer.
So he was the incumbent CO, and what did he think he was extending for a year because the other guy refused?
No,
I missed
he
something.
knew he had recommended that I take the job.
Yeah.
And apparently that had been approved.
Oh.
But nobody ever said, go ahead and do a turnover.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there was no classified, document page check stuff, no nothing. But because I had been the XO, I knew the stuff was all up to snuff anyway. So that wasn't a big deal for me. But I felt so bad for Eric Zanin because he never got to do the change of command thing that is.
Oh, yeah. That's huge.
He had a phenomenally successful 2 years there. Phenomenally successful. So now here I was, a commanding officer. And as interesting and gratifying as it had been to be an executive officer, to now be a commanding officer of a commissioned hardware combat unit of the Atlantic Fleet was staggering. When the day that I relieved Eric in the parking lot, when I got back to my room, I got on my knees and I thanked God and prayed for guidance and for strength and to be smart and take care of my people. And I prayed every day that I was a CO, that I would do the right thing, because I just never, ever wanted to have to write that letter, ever. But I also realized I finally had what I always wanted. I finally had gotten to the pinnacle of my dream. Went through another deployment out there to Fujairah. Ended up the task group commander. Everything went well. It was a long deployment. We went out. We left the day after Christmas in 2002. Mm-hmm. Came back into the first week of October in 2003. Had some terminal leave, was getting ready to go back to work at American Airlines, and got a call from Admiral Moon. And he said to me, I understand you're looking for a job. And I'm like, well, I have a job, but what have you got in mind? And he said, well, I have a 2-year recall for you. And without even asking where or what the job was, I said, yes. Because quite frankly, I found it far more gratifying to be working for the American citizens than to be working for the stockholders of American Airlines. It turned out to be the 2-year recall to the squadron in Newport as they were standing up the coastal warfare units in Newport. And I thought, well, this is just terrific. So I was doing that. It was the first staff job that I had ever had. But you know what? At least it wasn't in the Pentagon. Thank God.
No, just an asbestos-filled building in Newport. That's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I was thinking, I smoked for years. I got shot. How bad could this be? And at that point, they had knocked down the other building that was attached to it. Uh-huh. That was already torn down and gone away. So we only had the asbestos in one building to deal with. That was interesting. That was eye-opening because I got to deal at the squadron level with group and all of their stuff. And you know how aggravating that can be, because sometimes I think those people are so disconnected from reality. But we got through it. And then as the selection board came up for the command slots that year, I put in for IBU 21 because it was right there, and why not? Mm-hmm. And Admiral Moon called me when he realized I had done that. And he said, I have to tell you, you've already had your shot at CO. He said, you're not going to get this job. That's not going to happen. Somebody else needs a shot at it. And I said, well, the precept of the board is the most qualified person. He said, yeah, but we'll find people that are just as qualified as you. And I thought, okay, fine. Then I'll just stay at squadron. No big deal. When the message came out, I go and look, and there it is, CO IBU 21. Now I'm thrilled, because now, whereas IBU 22 had been sort of a default kind of a thing, mm-hmm. Now I've actually been selected.
Right. So 21 was deployed at that time.
They were deployed at that time.
I know.
Yes. Yes, and I still have a lot of that paperwork. Trust me. God, you guys, went through some stuff. So